Fun, man.
Too straight of an angle.
So what we end up doing when we're doing synthetic division is taking the coefficients here, -3, -3, +5, and +2, and putting them here, -3, +5, and +2. Okay. Now keep in mind, I mentioned this during the polynomial long division, is if we're missing, first of all the terms, all the x's have to be in descending order, right? So if that was x to the power of 1, that was x to the power of 2, you have to rewrite them words x to the power of 2 and then x to the power of 1 and then decreasing, right? And a constant. If this was a higher power, the highest x goes first and then next x, all the way down until you get to the constant. For synthetic division, it's really important that you put place markers for any missing x terms. So if this thing here was -3x squared and this 5x was missing, so it was -3x squared plus 5, what you would have to do is put 0x here. So this term here, this number here would be 0. You need the place marker for all the missing terms in your numerator, in the polynomial that's your numerator, okay? What you're going to do with the bottom is just set this equal to 0 and move the 2 over, right? So it becomes x is equal to 2. The first place you start is you grab the first coefficient, your constant here, or your number here, and you pop it down here. So this guy comes straight down, and you just put -3 here. First thing you do is grab the -3, pop it down here. Next thing you do is the number down here, whatever's here, you multiply this guy by this number, and it comes up here. Okay, and that's the routine that you're going to end up using. Whatever that comes down, you're going to be multiplying by this and kicking it up diagonally to the bottom of the next one. Okay, so this is going to be 2 times -3, and that comes up here, and that's -6. So you're going diagonally, and if you want, you could just put a multiply it by 2, so that way you know what you're multiplying by every time. Initially when you start anyway, but the better at this you get, the less you're going to write down all the extra steps in there, right? So that's going to be -6. What you're going to do now is add these two guys. 5 minus 6 is going to be 1, and that pops down here. So 5 minus 6 is -1, and what you're going to do now is take the 2, multiply by -1, and that thing pops here. So 2 times -1 is -2, and that guy goes there, and you're going to add those two guys, and 2 minus 2 is just going to be 0. So that guy is 0, and that guy is your remainder. So in the polynomial, when we did the long division, polynomial long division, we talked about, what all the terms were. We had the quotient, we had the dividend, the divisor, and the remainder. This guy would be your R of x. This guy is your P of x, which is your dividend. This is your divisor, your D of x, and this guy here is your Q of x. Now we don't have all the x terms in there, right? Because this synthetic division is the simpler way of doing it. We just forget about all the x's and take all the numbers and figure out what goes where, do the division, and come out with our numbers. Now if we want, what we can do is write this, put the x's back in. So this guy, the way it works is, what this guy represents is you just took an x squared, right, and divided an x out. So what happens if you got x squared divided by x? Well, it just becomes x. So you kicked this power down by 1. by a factor of 1. So what that means here what happens here is it becomes negative 3 x minus 1. Okay, so what you did was divided out an x from an x squared, and if you take an x out of an x squared, you end up with an x. If this was x cubed and you took out an x, this would be x squared. If this was x to the power 4, you took out an x, this would be x cubed. Your next term would be x cubed, right? And then from there, you would have to continue doing the synthetic division until you found all the factors, right? So if we're going to write this out now, this would mean it's negative 3x minus 1. This guy written in its factored form is x minus 2, right? So if you want, just to make just so you can keep track of what's going on, you can write these in different colors or at the bottom of them, just to remind yourself what it is, in the factor form, what it is exactly that you're doing here. That way you don't make any sign mistakes, okay? So when you write these out, that's just x minus 2. When x is equal to 2, that's just in factor form, is x minus 2. And this guy is negative 3x minus 1. Now, if you're going to write this out as the division statement, what you could do is, this is your p of x is equal to your q of x times your d of x plus your remainder. Your remainder happens to be 0. Okay. So we're just going to write down the division statement right down here. So our division statement is going to be our product, p of x is equal to q of x times d of x plus r of x. Now you don't need to put down the 0 there because, the remainder is just 0. If that was a number, the number would go here, right? If this bottom guy was not a factor of the top guy, then, you would get a remainder, which means when x is equal to whatever this thing is here, whatever it was, your y would have been this, right? So this is really trying to figure out what y is, because this top guy is really your y, what y is when x is equal to 2, right? And when x is equal to 2, y is 0 because it's a factor of it, it's an x-intercept, okay?